These ladies will give you an insight and into how to break through and be successful and definitely embrace the semiconductor manufacturing industry. So enjoy the panel. If you have any questions, please send them through. I leave you now with the panel moderator, Jennifer Zhao.
Thank you. So last but not least, I know we're running a little bit behind. Hope you're not too hungry. So first of all, I really want to thank ISES Organizing Committee for dedicating a panel discussion on women leadership in semiconductor and also inclusion. Yeah, this is really a topic dear to my heart, and I'm really honored to be together with these amazing women leaders in the industry to share the insights. As we all know, we don't have enough women representation in semiconductor industry, right? Just look at this room. We would love to see more women, especially women in leadership position. So actually, today at lunch, we had a chat about that. So we actually have a good pipeline of female engineers from technical schools, right? It's like 50% graduates from technical schools are now women. But if you look at in the professional world, the percentage of women in engineering position, even in leadership positions, much lower. We're talking about below 20%. Now, so we have a lot of work to do, but I think we are making progress. Just today, a few of the great presentations were done by female speakers, right? It's really excellent. And I think we are making great progress. And also another study showed it's very interesting, even for women who decided to take on a career in technology, a lot of them actually leave, right, to other nonprofits after 10, 20 years. And the reason, top reason, you'll be surprised, it's actually not family, right? We discussed this, it's lack of mentor, lack of role model. So today, I'm presenting you with these role models here. So for women who are thinking to get into technology industry or who want to have a career path, hopefully the panel discussion will give you some inspiration for you to stay in and have confidence you can be successful in this area. So I'm gonna kick off with a few questions, then I'll open up for questions from the audience. So first of all, I would like to know from the panelists here, what inspired you to join the semiconductor industry? So I'll start with Amy.
Thank you for asking. Actually, it reminded me the flowchart that Sala showed last night. The first box is math, right? So I always been pretty good in math, but in reality, what brought me to engineering is survival. My family moved to United States when I was a teenager, and we didn't have a lot. And the first thing is, what is the job or degree you can get guaranteed a job? And engineering is a fascinating thing to start. So that's really what brought me to the industry. But I think what's really kept me here for over 25 years is the continuous innovation of the industry. It's just so exciting. There's never a dull moment. And so that's what inspired me to be in the industry.
Yes, indeed. It's a very exciting industry with continuous innovation. So Milena, do you want to share?
Sure. I wish I could tell you that some inspirational story, but the fact is that I joined semiconductor industry somewhat opportunistically. It was 1996. I was graduating, and I was on a student visa, needed a job. So I joined Motorola here in Phoenix, their MEMS packaging team. Now, I knew nothing about MEMS. I knew nothing about packaging. I was just hoping that people who hired me knew what they were doing. And I have to say, even at that time, I was sort of thinking to maybe move to academia, but I very quickly developed the appreciation for this industry. First of all, it is an honest work. When you think about what we do, we have really to make technology manufacturing ready. Everything has to work. And we are doing it as we are dancing at the edge of science and at the edge of knowledge. The second thing, what I learned fairly quickly and was really mesmerized by at that time and even today is how knowledge gets converted into money. you know, how you can make an impact as a technologist, as an engineer. And the third thing that really inspired me and why I'm still here is this: it is aligned with my sense of professional purpose. I always thought that engineering is the sort of ultimate profession to help improve people's lives. And when you look into semiconductor industry, just what it has done during my lifetime, it is not just that it has improved people's lives, but it has revolutionized how we live and work.
Thank you. Yeah, with a purpose, right? That's the most important thing. So, Rebecca, would you like to share?
Yes, thank you. So, you know, I think like Amy, very early on, it was a different type of survival. I came to the United States and didn't know English, and the only thing I understood was math. The numbers were the same. So I think very early on, I took a love for math and science. And that later became a vision for technology. And trying to understand how the world worked and how I could make an impact in the world through the use of technology. So once, you know, I finished school and started, you know, for an internship, I wanted to get into robotics. That was the area that I wanted to get into, and I got a job at Motorola at a packaging line. Because they were using a robot on that line. So I show up my first day of work, and they said, well, we've decided we're not going to use the robot anymore because it's not cost effective. And so I ended up in semiconductors. You know, so it's being able to see, and what has kept me there is understanding the technology, you know, better than knowing what 5G is before anybody knows what that is, knowing what ADAS, autonomous driving, I mean, being able to impact and being able to make a change in the world. So I think I'll just stand by saying, you know, if the plan doesn't work, change the plan, but never change the goal.
Excellent, and it's also really interesting. Yeah, so 4 of us actually are immigrants, right? We came to U.S. from another country, and we can share a lot about inclusion. So, Sandy.
Yes, thank you. So, being in semiconductors was really just an accident. So I'll change up the question and say, why do I stay in semiconductors? For sure, it's fast-paced, high-tech, and I love that. Anne said it earlier, and Rebecca just mentioned, what we do changes the world. And so for me, staying in semiconductors means that I enrich everyday life. I can tell my kids what I do, and they love it. They think it's exciting. The other piece for me, what I love about semiconductor is that I work with a ton of really smart people. I love to learn, and so our industry, I find just impressive, the amount of intelligence and learning that happens on a daily basis at work.
I'm glad you stayed. I absolutely agree with you, right? There's a lot of learning, lot of innovation in semiconductor industry. So Rebecca, yeah, you've been with Motorola, now with Amkor. So maybe you can share some of the challenges you encountered and how you overcame them.
Sure. So I'll start early on. You know, I think when I first came here, I kept hearing this word minority, and I went and asked my brother, what does minority mean? I mean, I came from Mexico, I didn't know what that meant. And he says, well, you're a double one. So the challenge was being a Hispanic female in electrical engineering in the late 80s. So I didn't know that I was different, but then it was made very apparent. But then I overcame it by just continuing to stay true to my dreams. And realizing that life's not always fair, you just got to deal with it. And just like you find people that won't support you, you will find supporters. You know, another story is I was in class, and the professor basically told me women should not be in engineering in the middle of class. But I was like, well, what can I do? I mean, I'm just going to keep studying, and I can't let that stop me. And then, you know, as I went on, I realized we're all different. Every person, whether it's based on our background, on our strengths, our weaknesses, based on our genetics, the way we learn, the way that we work, everybody's different. So it's those differences that bring us together and can really enrich, a company's culture. And by having that diversity of thought, it makes us smarter. It makes us better because we can see all different perspectives. What one person may not have thought of, another person does. So what I would say to overcome the challenges is A mentor once told me luck, or you can say success, is where preparation meets opportunity. So there's nothing like work hard, very hard. Never give up on your dreams, and never compromise integrity, and you will overcome any challenge.
Well said, yeah. Stay true to your dreams, right? Life's not always fair, but don't let it stop you. Exactly. Thank you. Amy, do you want to add something to that?
Sure, I can agree with Rebecca more about just stay strong, right? And maybe I'll address to earlier comments from Jennifer about women enter semiconductor tech industry about half-half, right? Close to parity, but we lose lots of women along the way. So the question I asked myself was, what is the biggest challenge I personally felt that to stay in the industry, right? So I'll share just my personal example. I think it's really come to, some of that is very much self-imposed time constraint, as well as lack of optionality. I'll take ownership of this. I think just as mother instinct, right, across your life. Gosh, I must have kids during my most fertile time before I turn 30. I got my kids in my early 30s. I have twins. It's like, gosh, I was director or senior director at the time. I have a very demanding job. Do I really have to give up my my job, or do I become mom, right? And I think the next thing is probably the worst. When you have kids, you go to school, you compare yourself to other mom. It's like, wait a minute, am I putting my kids in disadvantageous position because they have mom who spend tons of time with them, right? Will my kids grow up to be worse than other kids? So all of these are kind of self-imposed. I think sitting with such a powerful audience here and the executive of semiconductor industry, and I was just so grateful, like along the way, my managers, my mentor, to help me navigate some of these life confusions, right? And make me realize that, hey, there are options. Life is a long journey. Having kid along the way is no big deal. And you're not alone, and there's lots of supporting infrastructures. And also, so grateful for the mentors my company have assigned or helped me to find, right? And I think that's really, really powerful supporting structure from family and the company to help us overcome these challenges to keep women in the industry.
Yeah, I agree, Amy. I think having the right supporting system is so critical. So at my company, AMS OSRAM, we launched this Women in Network platform. It's really to provide this support. And also, a lot of men sign up as mentors, right? I personally have many mentors who are men who really strongly support me. So I'm really grateful for that. So, supporting this woman in leadership initiative is not really just a task for women, right? We need all of you, the executives here, to support. I'm sure you have many women employees on your team. You want to keep them motivated, want to develop them. So we're all in this together. Yeah. So I would like to ask Sandy, what advice do you have to advance, inclusion for semiconductor industry?
Yep. So for me, I would say participate and have an open mind. And by participate, I mean having you here, listening to what we have to say. You're participating, and I thank you for that. Being a mentor, find someone that looks very different from you, that has a very different background than you, and mentor them and give them an extra hand along the way. We all need that. And what I mean by having an open mind, we all have biases that are hidden, that are subconscious. And I'll share a story where I struggled being inclusive. I was interviewing an engineer. I've done hundreds or thousands of those interviews, and I walked into the room and stopped in my tracks because when I saw the person, they were physically very different from me. And I made some assumptions on what their culture was like and what they probably thought of me in that room and in that position. And so I just said to myself, look, I'm in here for 45 minutes and I'm gonna make the best of it. And so I looked at this person in the eyes as a person that wanted to work, wanted to do something with their lives, do something in the world, provide for their families, ended up hiring the person. They were a very valuable engineer, and we keep in touch to this day. But it was really having that open mind and being inclusive, though when I stepped in that room, it was very uncomfortable. So my advice would be have an open mind. Inclusion looks like a lot of things.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Yeah, you mentioned about interview. I actually just read an article last week. It's kind of interesting because for interview, right, they kind of surveyed people from US or European background, and people really value being very passionate, being outgoing as like a sign of being competent. But for people who come from Asia, they value more like a kind of a calm demeanor as valuable. So I think being inclusive also means, we understand the diverse cultures, so we don't just judge people because they don't fit into a certain criteria. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting article I read. Yeah. So maybe Milena, do you want to add to that?
Sure. You were talking about biases, acceptance of others. So I think when you're looking at one organization, when the presence of women at different level of that organization is actually a metric, an indicator of how receptive that organization is of different working styles, different personalities, right? How willing that organization is to challenge preconceived assumptions about others. Because you see, women are identifiable category. When you think about white men, not all white men are the same, right? There are many who do not fit into this alpha male category that has traditionally been successful in our industry. And I believe they are not reaching their full potential in our industry, but they're not identifiable as a category. We women are, right? And that is sort of an indicator how, as an organization, we are receptive of others. I also want to say one thing. If there is one thing that our industry does well, it is solve problems. Yet for some reason, everything related to this diversity has been delegated to this diversity industrial complex, like they are going to solve these type of challenges. The fact that our industry has not solved that problem, I think, is because it doesn't consider it a priority. Now, we have some shining examples. I live in Silicon Valley. We have seen Intel publishing diversity data, setting goals, and reaching these goals. So we have seen that it can be done. It is just that I don't think that our industry really sees it yet. Especially smaller companies, global companies in the other parts of the world, they don't see it as an issue. Yet all the studies show that when you have diverse population, your approach to problem solving improves. So it is not just a good thing to do, it is also a profitable thing to do.
So, Milena, I think you should also share the story you shared with us at lunch, how you changed your name to get more opportunity for people to look at your resume.
Okay, so I really didn't plan to do it, but it was 20 years ago, and I was a new mother looking to go back to work. And as I was already had about 6 years of experience, and as I was looking for a job, nobody would call me. And I saw a conversation on the TV with somebody who was writing a book about first impression. And he shared that when biggest symphony orchestras starting using screens for auditions, the chance for selecting women was going up 50%. And I remember being absolutely shocked because, at least in my mind, women were music was like female profession. So that night I changed the resume, the name on my resume. I just put my first initial. And it was somewhat shocking that within 3 weeks I started getting calls, and everybody would ask to speak to Mr. Vujosevic. and my husband has different last name, so I knew they were looking for me. But what I realized at that moment, again, this was 20 years ago, before all these diversity initiatives, that by removing my obviously female name, I removed the barrier that people had to actually read my resume. So that was an eye-opening experience, and again, that was an experience that sort of sensitized me to these type of challenges.
Yeah, I think it really showed, right? I think things really have improved quite a bit. I think for nowadays when we hire, especially for like even R&D, positions, we actually really welcome and look for female candidates. Yeah, I was looking for a VP of engineering on my team. When I saw a couple of resumes from female applicants, the team was really happy, right? Because multiple studies have shown having diversity directly improve the company financial performance. So I think having a diverse team, having inclusive team, I think it's directly related to the bottom line of the company. So with that, I'd like to open up for questions from the audience or online.
Hi, Kevin Khan from Amkor. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all of you for being successful in your respective areas. Jennifer, you talk about mentorship. It would be interesting to hear from the panelists. You look up to mentorship, but now that you're in this position, any one of you, how and what are your unique approaches to mentor the next generation that you see that are potential? Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. So who wants to take that? Rebecca?
Well, I have done more informal mentoring where, there's women that will either approach me or I will approach them, and it's more of giving them confidence. It's amazing, and there's one book, Lean In, which I recommend to anyone coming up on this technology or any one of these industries, because I think women have, there was a statistic there that if we have, in order to apply for a job, women have to feel they're 120% qualified, where men have to, apply if they're 70% qualified. That really made an impact on me. So a lot of what I use is just give confidence and tell people and tell the women, yes, this is what you can do. And I've seen some take on these bigger responsibilities, and it's great. I think that we do need, at least in the companies I've been in, we don't have a more formal mentoring program. So I think that's very important. And it's not just women mentoring women. It's men. It's like everybody in this room can be that change catalyst. Every person can make the change one decision at a time. But yeah, I think we do need more, more formal mentoring programs.
Thank you, Rebecca. Amy?
I'll add a little bit. FormFactor does have a formal mentor program where I thought it was really helpful, and also I'm part of it. It's a very rewarding experience for both the mentor and mentee. And we have an annual matchup, and depends on the mentee's desire, we match them up. But you always learn something. It's mutually beneficial, and then the next year, if the person change career or have different interests, we can always change the matchup as well.
Yeah, so I also have a formal mentor program in the company. So I'm actually right now actively mentor a female employee in Singapore. So we have a quarterly session. So in the last session, she shared the challenge she's facing is, she's from Singapore, she's Asian, but she goes to the meeting, for example, in Germany, right? So she's facing all these, tall German guys, so she felt out of place. Yeah, so I told her to reframe her mind, right? I said, that's not your weakness, it's your strength. So you can bring a different perspective, a different aspect to the team. Yeah, so don't think, you feel kind of shy or you feel inferior because you're too short. I said, hey, just be you, and you should be really proud, right? You're bringing diversity to the team. So that's how I mentored her. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Just a comment. May is Asian American Pacific Islander Month. So thank you for bringing up these really interesting cultural element, right? I think it's really just be more aware of the cultural differences and really help to retain and make people feel included.
But I just want to say one thing. Mentorship is absolutely important for women, men, everybody. I do it myself. But somehow let us not frame this discussion that we constantly need to improve women. Right? Let's frame this discussion about let's sponsor them, let's give them opportunities so that they can prove themselves. Right? Because ultimately it is the question, are we as organizations proportionally distributing organizational resources to our female and male employee? And organizational resources are executive time, opportunity, titles, salaries, right? Just executive time. Do you ever take, for example, your female employee for lunch outside the way you do with your male employees? Right, to have that personal connection. Do you socialize within the work environment with your female employees the way you do with your male employees? Because as executives, that is your time, that is company time, right? So how are you assigning? When you have opportunities, do you look into your population and are you tapping some women who have maybe still rough around the edges, but maybe have some potential? Or do you traditionally go to people who you already trust, you are comfortable with? So I think these are the questions that all of us need to address.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question over here. Robin Davis from Deca Technologies. So you've touched upon mentorship programs and also initiatives within companies to hire more women and help them make it up the ladder, essentially. But how do we bring that equity for women without being kind of met with hostility? Like, I have a couple personal examples where people have I'll try to tell this story without being crass, but like when I was in college, I interviewed for a bunch of internships, and I was offered a few of them and was trying to pick between which program or which company I wanted to work for. And a classmate of mine was overhearing me discuss with a friend and said, "I wish I was a woman so that I could walk into any interview and be offered the position." And it's so degrading to me and how hard I'd worked and studied and my knowledge. It was just saying, oh, well, there's these programs in place now to help women get in, and that's all it is. That's the only reason that you're in this position now. So how do we overcome that?
Sandy, you want to?
Ignore it. Who cares? I mean, when I hear statements like that, I feel bad for them. If that's how they're going to go through life, it really means that they're threatened by you. So keep on.
Yeah. Just be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, remember what Rebecca said, right? Life is not always fair, but just stay strong and don't let it get to you.
Exactly, and the results show, right?
At the end of the day, it's performance, right? We want to offer the same opportunity to women, but it doesn't mean you don't have to be a good performer, right? I also obviously look at performance as hiring criteria, yeah.
Very insightful discussion. Now, you have all these guys sitting here. If each of you have a word of advice for them as we try to close this. So, go one by one and just make an advice to us how we could do better.
Thank you for the question. Rebecca?
Okay, I'll start. Again, I think we are not saying, I think this brings we don't want to be hired because we're women. We want to be hired because we're the best person for the job, right? So just consider us equally to anybody else that's interviewing for that job. like I said, everybody's different. So we don't look at the differences, the short, the tall, the right. Just consider based on our qualifications. And like I said a little bit earlier, be that change catalyst. You know, each one of us in this room, male or female, can make this, can make it equitable one decision at a time.
Yeah, so I already sort of mentioned some of the things. Think about how your resources that you are in charge of, are they equitably distributed? Opportunities that you have, your time, right? I've been in this industry 25 years. I never had a lunch with my manager outside of work, right? 25 years. Yet my male peers regularly have that, right? So when I ask them, can you tell how many times? They think it is a ridiculous question, but I know that number, right? And it is these, and I noticed also when I started managing men and managing women, I would notice that my male employees are very well versed into organizational intricacies. They knew not just official hierarchy, but hidden hierarchy. Right? And to these informal connections that they had, they were able to grow and to learn about things. Right? So these are think about some of these things. Also give opportunities, but resource them when they put them to execute. Hold them accountable, give feedback, regular feedback, not at the performance time. And when you have this personal relationship, then it is easier to give tough feedback. I have noticed that people are reluctant to give feedback to women. Either they don't know how they will handle it, I don't know. But give feedback, I think that's important, and give opportunity.
Thank you. Amy?
Would you like to provide your comment first?
Sure,
Jennifer?
yeah. So I think the advice is take your female employees out for lunch.
No, seriously.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just hoping we can all be more mindful of unconscious bias. Well, we all have it, and that's just be inclusive people who are not like us, right? I think it's very natural we're more comfortable with people just like us, but that's, give the same opportunity for people who think differently than us, and it will just, I think, make our workplace more interesting and just more exciting. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the title of this panel discussion is how to break the glass ceiling. And oftentimes we have this visual in our head. It's a ladder, we'll climb linearly, break the ceiling, right? But in reality, it's actually a maze. Okay, to navigate through a male-dominated semiconductor industry, regardless how strong the women are, oftentimes you run into the wall, you just cannot break it. So I think I really want to ask everybody to become ally of women, and you are the power base at your company, and create the culture to be more inclusive, accept people are different, think differently, and I think all of us will this will help to create better business results, also help us to solve the talent shortage problem, which was consistent throughout this conference. Let's keep all the women who enter the workforce, stay with the workforce, and be the best version of themselves.
Thanks for the question. There is something to this lunch thing. Whether it's lunch or traveling with a male business partner, people look at you and assume that you're a married couple. The younger version of myself would have answered the question and say, just treat me like one of the guys. Please don't treat me differently. I guess now that I've spent many years in the industry, I would draw the analogy, I think Milena said it earlier, we're really good at solving problems. And how do you solve a problem? You look at seeking to understand. You get data, you get information, you have conversations. That would be my advice, is just talk to them and understand where they're coming from, and you'll figure it out because you're smart.
Okay, so easy, right? More lunch, but still be compliant. So with that, I want to thank all the panelists for the lovely discussion, and also thank for the interest and questions from the audience, and also for the people, women online. I want you to feel confident that you can have a great future, right? Look at all the panelists here. We all came from different backgrounds, right? But we all made something out of our career, so you can also do that. So, and also for the men executives here, please continue to support the women employees on your team, and also for the next generation, your daughters, your sisters. I think we can all benefit from a more inclusive and diverse workforce. Thank you very much.